There's something that happened. You were running on three different lines, right? You were running on the Democratic line, the Republican line, and conservative.
Well,
What?
actually, all the parties reached out to me. The Republican, conservative, libertarian. But most people don't realize Brooklyn my district is a one-party system. Most people vote down party lines. I was a registered Democrat, and I assumed my path to victory would be easier through the Democratic Party. I didn't think I'd have to raise funds, and I'd still win.
This what happened?
I got kicked off the ballot.
Why?
Well, if you read, I saw on social media they're saying guilt through association, that I was connected to someone who helped Heshi Tischler, and they said guilt through association. Let's get these guys. And then a few days later, they kicked me off the ballot. They said my amended cover sheet was not correct.
So do you think it's politics or anti-Semitism or both?
Well, I'm the only Jewish candidate running. What's amazing is there's a fake website. Well, it's a website called jewishvote.org, and it's endorsing every other candidate but me, which is kind of strange. And it's all about the James Floyd and social injustice. And I just feel that it's done to steal the Jewish vote. And eventually, once you steal the vote or steal the Jewish voice, eventually they're going to come after the funding. So the goal is to take the funds, what is probably going to Borough Park, and then to give it to their progressive friends who are community activists. So instead of addressing the real issues of mental health, home ownership, they give it to their community activist friends.
Are those the two issues you would be working on if you win? Those are the two main issues, or there's other issues that you want to clean up as a council member?
They talk about rezoning is racist, but I think by not rezoning, you're affecting the community. In Sunset Park, which is predominantly first-generation immigrants from Mexico, from China,
And when you say rezoning, what do you mean by rezoning? Because every district has different issues.
We have so much land in Sunset Park. If we take that land and use it to build homes, even for first-time homeowners.
Are you referring like along the water, where it's like empty over here on First Avenue?
Because now we don't do much manufacturing. It's mostly Amazon warehouse fulfillment centers, or third-party sellers. And like car repair shops.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's your?
I'd love to take that land and use it to build homes, for noise, for sound. For sound. I mean, after a while,
pollution and stuff like that.
And deaths, riding. There are accidents all the time. It's an ecological disaster.
Okay, and
also if you take like the Aaron Hernandez defense, that he kept on getting hit in the head, and he said it caused him to do crazy things. And it's the same, like, there was a double homicide across the street, which, I mean, after constantly hearing these loud noises all night, it really affects your mental health. And I think that's one of the biggest issues is mental health. And instead of trying to improve our area, they're filling all of our hotels now with homeless people with mental health issues. And they're not dealing with the mental health issues. So basically they're preying on other people like water buffalo along the Serengeti. I can show you my petition, my amended cover sheet. Originally, there was a printer's error. A lot of my staff are volunteers. We use people, some of them have Asperger's and bipolar. I mean, we did our job we took as many volunteers as we can.
So like it was more of a grassroots that's who's helping you okay, like people are just regular people fed up with what's going on in their community.
And when we're going out to get signatures during a time where they tell us to stay home and wear a mask, in order to get that job, we have to go out and get 270 signatures. And I got more than that. And they still threw out my petitions. So there are all these meetings with the Board of Elections. It's all done on Zoom. And I asked, I said, how come we can't do this in person? Because we had to go out and get all these signatures in person. And they said, basically, it's a good introduction to the hypocrisy of government.
The Mayor de Blasio is, I don't think it's talk anymore. He says he's building a bicycle lane on the Brooklyn Bridge. Am I correct? I'm sure you heard about that a couple of weeks ago. Are you in favor of something like that?
I'd have to look at more of I know it's going to sound like a politician, but to look at the studies. But I think they don't want cars in New York. And one of the biggest problems in New York, at least in my section in Brooklyn, is people have cars to get to work. They don't have cars to drive to their second home in the Hamptons. So getting in and out of New York. I mean, it's obvious they don't want cars here, and that's why this is one of the poorest sections in Brooklyn, and they charge you for parking till 10 p.m. at night. So
Is that something you would change as a council member?
Yes.
You would like rather look on it?
I reached out to the police station and they said speak to DOT, and I said, well, do you think that DOT really cares about the impact on people who live in an economically depreciated district? I mean, why would they?
Bicycle lanes. Are you for it, or it depends where? Like, are you in the middle? Like,
If you drive on 4th Avenue, it's terrible. I know it sounds, maybe it sounds out there, but we could do it. If we take down the BQE and build a tunnel, I mean, we put man on the moon, we put robots on Mars, we split atoms, we could take down the BQE and build a tunnel. If we did that, it would be great for the businesses and for the residents, because the sound, I joke, I say it sounds like the ocean with potholes, but I would love to see it go.
what would you do as a council member, to be more pro police, to give them the tools that they need to clean up? What's your position on that issue that's going on now the last few months? Pro police and defund the police movement.
Yeah, maybe if you're in like Kennebunkport, Maine, maybe where there's not as much crime. But where I am in Sunset Park, it's dangerous. I say it's getting so bad, even the biker gangs are fearful. They're leaving Brooklyn. That they take a lot of the homeless people with mental problems and they leave them in the community without helping them. And they're not from here. I talk to people. They're from Williamsburg. Some are from Connecticut, out of state. And it's just, I understand. I feel bad for them, but we're trying to create a community, it's challenging because a lot of us, a lot of people when they first immigrate into the U.S., they have, I don't want to say cultural baggage. They have their own cultures, and integrating is a challenge. So they're very secular, and there's a lot of undocumented residents who don't report crimes. And I think one of the biggest threats to the people in our community, I mean, not just the Asian community, but every community, is public safety. I mean, even Rick Moranis was assaulted. He's a Canadian actor. I mean, no, it just seems like no one's safe. And by stacking the streets with homeless people with drug dependencies and alcoholism, I interviewed one man. I spoke to one man, and he said that he was removed from his house for beating a family member. And so they removed him from the house, and now they put him in a hotel down the block. He seemed like a nice guy, but...
Did you ask him why he's beating his wife up?
No, I think it was his son, but he said that's how you got to teach him. As I said, apparently other people don't feel the same way. But
So, I mean, how would you change it as a council member? I mean, obviously one council member cannot change it. It's a coalition. But what would you do as a council member to legislate, or you would be in charge of, you would be part of the process of budgeting, for example. You're part of the process. What would you do?
I would prevent private hotels from housing homeless people. It's not right. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the community.
So where would you put them? Because we always hear this debate. Okay, no hotels, yes hotels. Okay, so if it's not a hotel, but so like are you just going to shift the problem somewhere else, or like how would you fix it?
Yeah, but I don't know where they all came from. But that should.
But you don't have to know where they came from.
This,
we know what the problem is.
I know it sounds radical.
What would you do?
I know it sounds radical, but we have a federal prison down the block, which, if we can use that to house them, not lock them up, but just to house them and give them the treatment that they need. The ones who are mentally unstable, the ones who really need mental help, and we can use that as a facility and have work programs, job programs for them, for people who need help, who could get help. It would be great. Like I said, it's just using private hotels. I know people who worked in the hotels, and they lost their job as receptionists because they thought the environment was unsafe, and then they brought in professional security guards. So it's dangerous.
So what would your office look like as a councilman?
Yes, I mean, I want obviously all types of voters. Something that represents our whole community. So I'd like people from Borough Park, people from Red Hook. We'll have a Sunset Park. I mean, we have people from all over the world here, and we want our office to reflect the diversity of our community. In Vietnam, I hire a lot of people. 50% of our staff are people with disabilities. We teach them how to create sustainable businesses through e-commerce. So we teach them how to knit, how to make jewelry. But I love giving people a chance who normally wouldn't have the opportunity. And I would like to find people who really don't have a voice or feel like they have an opportunity and give them an opportunity. Some people say, the road to hell is paved with Ivy League degrees. We want regular people from the community who haven't had the opportunity, but they know what's wrong. We all know what's wrong with our community. It's just very few people have the chutzpah to actually act on their convictions and do something about it.
Yeah, would you consider yourself an anti-establishment person?
I based on the way our current administration is acting towards our community, I would have to say yes. But I'm not anti-establishment, I'm anti-this establishment. I've been receiving emails from community activists who say, defund the police and give us the money and you will have my support. I blow it off and I said, I haven't looked at the budget yet, so I can't make any statements. But the reality is that people knew how divisive it was, that it's all about the money. It was, then I guess you realize what it's all about. You realize what it's all about. It's all about the money. So the question is, do you trust the politicians more than you trust the police? And that's up to you. But I just think that now, instead of buying a politician, what they do is politicians will use the community activists to get votes. So it's crazy. So you don't have to give a politician money anymore. What they do is the community activists are now dependent on the state for funding. So they're no longer community activists, they become political activists. So the political activists now are actually mouthpieces for the state, for the politicians. So the worse of a job you do in politics and the more problems you create, the more money then you give to your community activists, and then they will champion you as the hero. I've been receiving emails from community activists who say, defund the police and give us the money and you will have my support. I blow it off and I said, I haven't looked at the budget yet, so I can't make any statements. But the reality is that people knew how divisive it was, that it's all about the money. It was, then I guess you realize what it's all about. You realize what it's all about. It's all about the money. So the question is, do you trust the politicians more than you trust the police? And that's up to you. But I just think that now, instead of buying a politician, what they do is politicians will use the community activists to get votes. So it's crazy. So you don't have to give a politician money anymore. What they do is the community activists are now dependent on the state for funding. So they're no longer community activists, they become political activists. So the political activists now are actually mouthpieces for the state, for the politicians. So the worse of a job you do in politics and the more problems you create, the more money then you give to your community activists, and then they will champion you as the hero.
So you want to get things back to normalcy?
Yes. I hope to win. If it's not on the Democratic Party, I'm happy to do it under the Conservative Party or the Libertarian Party. And like I said, 2 years is enough. I'll go back to my civilian life and let the next guy take it over. I think we can accomplish more in the first few days than our current administration has done over the last 8 years.
Okay.